The text message arrived at exactly 3:47 p.m., just as I was hanging the last string of lights for our 15th anniversary party. My phone buzzed against the kitchen counter, and Maren's name lit up the screen with words that would change everything. Blizzard shut the road. I can't get back from the trip. So sorry, honey. I stared at the message, then walked to our living room window. Outside, the October sun blazed across our suburban street in Millbrook Heights, casting sharp shadows on bone-dry pavement, not a cloud in the sky. I pulled up the State Highway Department's live traffic cameras on my phone, the same route Maren claimed to be trapped on. Clear roads, light traffic, perfect visibility for miles. My wife had just lied to me about something as basic as the weather. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Elias Crowley, 44 years old, senior network analyst for Midwest Data Solutions. I spend my days troubleshooting problems, finding patterns in chaos, and detecting when systems aren't behaving as they should. 15 years of marriage had taught me that relationships operate on similar principles, and right now, my marriage was throwing error messages everywhere. The house felt different without Maren's presence, like a smart home with half its sensors offline. We'd spent 3 weeks planning this anniversary party, 60 guests confirmed, catered dinner from Romano's, even rented a chocolate fountain that Ruby, our 17-year-old daughter, had insisted was totally cringe, but whatever. Now, I'd have to explain to everyone why the guest of honor was mysteriously absent. I walked through our house, really looking at it for the first time in months. Everything was perfectly arranged, from the matching throw pillows Maren had ordered online to the family photos strategically placed to suggest happiness. But something felt hollow about it all, like a movie set designed to look lived in, but missing the actual life. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ruby, texting from upstairs. "Mom's not coming? This is so embarrassing. Can I just go to Chloe's instead?" Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw our neighbor Mrs. Patterson holding a casserole dish, her face bright with anticipation. Behind her, I could make out the Hendersons walking up our driveway, followed by Maren's work friends carrying wine bottles and gift bags. The party was starting, and I was about to become the solo act in what was supposed to be a duet. "Elias!" Mrs. Patterson beamed as I opened the door. "Where's the birthday girl? Don't tell me she's still getting ready upstairs." "Anniversary," I corrected automatically. "And actually, Maren got caught in a blizzard. Won't be making it tonight." Mrs. Patterson's smile faltered as she glanced past me at the crystal-clear evening sky. "A blizzard? But it's such a beautiful—" "I know," I said, taking her casserole dish. "Weird weather patterns these days." More guests arrived in clusters. Maren's pharmaceutical sales team from Hartwell Industries, my co-workers from the IT department, neighbors we exchanged pleasantries with but never really knew. Each time someone asked about Maren, I repeated the blizzard story, watching their confused glances at the cloudless sky. By 7 o'clock, our living room was packed with people making awkward small talk while picking at the catered spread. The chocolate fountain gurgled ominously in the corner, untouched. I found myself standing by the kitchen island, nursing a beer and fielding increasingly skeptical questions about my wife's whereabouts. "So where exactly is this blizzard?" asked Janet Morse, Maren's closest work friend. She was scrolling through her phone with the intensity of a detective. "Because I'm looking at weather maps and I'm not seeing any storm systems anywhere in the region." "That's what Maren told me," I said, pulling out my phone. "Look, here's her exact message." I showed Janet the text, watching her read it twice. Her perfectly manicured eyebrows drew together in confusion. "That's odd," she said carefully. "Because Maren told me yesterday that her conference in Chicago got canceled. She was planning to spend today getting ready for tonight." The beer in my hand suddenly tasted like metal. "Conference in Chicago?" The pharmaceutical sales summit. She's been talking about it for weeks. Janet's voice dropped to a whisper. Elias? Where did you think she was? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a notification from our joint banking app. Someone had just used Maren's credit card at Romano's Italian restaurant, the same place that had catered our party. Except this charge was for 2 dinners, not catering, and it was time-stamped 20 minutes ago. Romano's was exactly 4 miles from our house. I excused myself and walked to my home office, closing the door behind me. My hands were surprisingly steady as I logged into our shared phone plan account. As a network analyst, I had administrative access to all our family's digital services. Call it professional paranoia, but I'd always maintained visibility into our household's data usage, location services, and account activities. Maren's phone had been pinging cell towers in our own city all day. Not only had she never left Millbrook Heights, but her current location showed her at the Grandview Hotel downtown, the same hotel where Romano's had their upscale dining room. I pulled up our credit card statements for the past 3 months, applying the same systematic analysis I used for network security audits. Patterns emerged like constellations in data. Recurring charges at restaurants I'd never been to, purchases at boutique clothing stores during work hours, and a particularly interesting series of transactions at the Grandview Hotel spanning the last 6 weeks, every Tuesday and Thursday. Same time, same room service charges. My marriage had been hacked, and I'd been too distracted by routine maintenance to notice the breach. The office door opened, and Ruby poked her head in. "Dad? People are asking if they should leave. This is getting super weird." I looked at my daughter, Maren's eyes in my stubborn chin, and made a decision that would transform me from victim to villain in the span of a single evening. "Tell them to stay," I said, opening my laptop. "The party's just getting started." I spent the next 20 minutes in my office, my fingers flying across the keyboard with the focused intensity I usually reserved for critical system failures. Except this time, the system failing was my marriage, and I was about to implement some aggressive debugging measures. First, I changed all the passwords to our joint accounts. Banking, credit cards, streaming services, cloud storage, everything that connected Maren's life to mine. Then I transferred our anniversary party fund from our joint account to my personal checking. If she wanted to play games with fictional blizzards, she could finance her deception with her own money. But the real masterstroke came when I opened Facebook. Our anniversary party had its own event page, complete with photos from previous years and excited comments from friends. 63 people had marked themselves as attending, and the comments section was filled with well wishes and anniversary congratulations. It was the perfect public forum for what I was about to do. I updated my relationship status from married to single. The change propagated across social media instantly. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, every platform where Maren and I were connected as a couple. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with confused messages from friends who'd received the notification. Then I posted a photo to the anniversary party event page, a screenshot of the Weather Service's live traffic cameras, showing clear roads and sunny skies along the route where Maren claimed to be trapped. The caption was simple. "Interesting weather patterns tonight. Sometimes storms appear where you least expect them." I closed the laptop and returned to the party. The living room had taken on the uncomfortable energy of a wake where no one was quite sure who had faded. Guests clustered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones while glancing at their phones. The social media notifications had started reaching people, and the confusion was spreading like a virus through the crowd. "Elias!" Janet approached me with her phone in hand. "Did you just change your Facebook status to single?" "I did. But why? Is everything okay with you and Maren?" I gestured toward the window, where the evening sun was painting our street in golden light. "You tell me, Janet, do you see any blizzards out there?" Janet's face went pale as the implications hit her. Around us, I could hear other conversations stopping as people checked their own phones. The social media update was creating a real-time audience for my wife's deception. My phone rang, Maren's name on the caller ID. I answered on speakerphone. "Elias, what the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice cut through the party chatter like a knife. "Why did you change your relationship status? People are calling me asking if we're getting divorced." "Funny thing," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. "I was just wondering the same thing. How's that blizzard treating you?" Silence on the other end. In the background, I could hear restaurant noise. Clinking glasses, muted conversation, someone laughing. Definitely not the sound of someone stranded by weather. "I can explain," she said finally. "I'm sure you can. But first, maybe you could explain it to Romano's. Seems like you're having dinner there right now, according to our credit card statement. Funny place to be trapped by a blizzard, considering it's 4 miles from our house." The party had gone completely silent now. 60 guests watching me have a public marital breakdown while holding glasses of wine and paper plates of untouched catered food. "Elias, don't do this. Not like this." "Do what, Maren? Tell the truth? You're the one who decided to lie about being trapped in imaginary weather instead of coming to our anniversary party. I'm just sharing the meteorological facts with our friends." I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted from anger to panic. "I'm coming home. We'll talk about this privately." "Take your time," I said. "The party will probably still be going when you get here, assuming you can navigate through that terrible blizzard." I hung up and looked around the room. 60 faces staring back at me, expressions ranging from shock to pity to barely concealed excitement at witnessing such spectacular domestic drama. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat. Should we go?" "Absolutely not," I said, raising my beer bottle. "This is still an anniversary party. We're just celebrating something different than I originally planned." My phone started buzzing with text messages. Friends, family members, co-workers, everyone who'd received the social media notifications was reaching out for details. But the message that caught my attention was from someone unexpected. Nolan Trent, Maren's regional manager at Hartwell Industries. "Saw your FB update. Everything okay? Maren seemed fine at the office today." I stared at the message, feeling pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. Nolan Trent, 6'2", salt and pepper hair, married with 2 kids. Maren had mentioned him frequently over the past few months, always in the context of work, but with a particular enthusiasm that I'd attributed to career ambition. I scrolled back through our joint credit card statements, this time filtering for any charges that coincided with Maren's Tuesday and Thursday work meetings. The pattern was unmistakable. Every hotel charge was preceded by a gas station purchase near Hartwell Industries' office complex. Nolan Trent wasn't just Maren's manager. He was her Tuesday and Thursday appointment. Ruby appeared at my elbow, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Dad, this is insane. Everyone at school is going to see this. Can't you just delete the posts and work this out with Mom privately?" "Your mother made this public when she decided to lie about being trapped in a weather emergency," I said. "I'm just providing accurate meteorological data." "You're being petty and cruel," Ruby shot back. "Mom made a mistake, but you're humiliating her in front of everyone she knows." Before I could respond, the front door burst open. Maren stood in the doorway, her hair perfectly styled and her makeup intact. Not exactly the appearance of someone who'd been battling severe weather conditions. She wore the black dress I'd bought her for her birthday, the one she'd claimed was too fancy for work events. The party guests turned toward her like sunflowers tracking the sun. The silence was deafening. "Hello, everyone," Maren said, her voice artificially bright. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was unexpected." Janet stepped forward, her loyalty to Maren overriding her confusion. "We're so glad you made it. Elias was worried about that terrible blizzard." Maren's eyes found mine across the room. For a moment, I saw something I'd never seen before in my wife's face. Genuine fear. Yes, she said carefully. The weather was challenging. I pulled out my phone and opened the weather app. According to the National Weather Service, it's currently 68 degrees and clear skies throughout the region. But maybe you experienced some localized atmospheric disturbances at Romano's restaurant. The room collectively held its breath. Maren's face cycled through several expressions, surprise, anger, calculation, before settling on wounded innocence. It was a masterful performance, and I found myself admiring the skill even as I prepared to demolish it. I don't know what you're implying, Elias, she said, moving into the room with practiced grace. But I was at a work conference that got relocated due to weather concerns. I grabbed dinner afterward because I was exhausted and hungry. Alone? I asked. With colleagues. Which colleagues? Janet stepped forward, clearly trying to diffuse the situation. Maybe we should give you two some privacy to work this out. No, I said, my voice carrying the authority I used when explaining critical system failures to executives. I think our friends deserve to understand why they drove across town for an anniversary party where the guest of honor was busy celebrating something else entirely. I opened my laptop, which I'd brought down from the office, and connected it to our smart TV, the screen filled with our joint banking app, showing the evening's transactions in real time. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, I'd like to present tonight's financial timeline. The room watched in horrified fascination as I walked them through the evidence. The Romano's charge for 2 dinners, the Grandview hotel room service purchases, the pattern of Tuesday and Thursday expenses spanning 2 months. Now, I continued, let me show you something really interesting. I pulled up Maren's phone location data from our family plan account. A map appeared on the TV screen, showing her movements throughout the day. The red line traced a path from our house to Hartwell Industries, then to the Grandview Hotel, then to Romano's, and finally back to our street. As you can see, my wife has been trapped in a very localized blizzard that seems to follow her around the city. Remarkable meteorological phenomenon. Maren's composure finally cracked. You're violating my privacy. You have no right to track my movements like some kind of stalker. Actually, I said, as the account holder for our family phone plan, I have administrative access to location services. It's the same technology parents use to keep track of their teenagers. Speaking of which, Ruby, did you know your mother has been lying to both of us for the past 2 months? Ruby looked between her parents, her face red with mortification. I can't believe you're doing this in front of everyone. This is so messed up. What's messed up? I replied. Is discovering that your 15-year marriage is a fraud while you're hanging anniversary decorations. My phone buzzed with another text from Nolan Trent. Need to talk. This is getting out of hand. I held up the phone so everyone could see the message. Looks like Maren's colleague wants to discuss the weather situation. The room erupted in whispers and gasps. Mrs. Patterson actually dropped her wine glass, sending red liquid splashing across our hardwood floor. Janet grabbed Maren's arm, her face a mask of shock and betrayal. Maren, Janet whispered, please tell me this isn't what it looks like. Maren straightened her shoulders, and I saw her shift into the same mode she used when closing difficult sales. What this looks like is my husband having a paranoid breakdown and humiliating me in front of our friends and family. Really? I said. Then you won't mind if I call Nolan and invite him to join our anniversary celebration? I'm sure he'd love to explain the weather patterns he's been experiencing. I started dialing Nolan's number. Maren lunged forward and grabbed my phone. Stop it, Elias! You're making a fool of yourself. I'm making a fool of myself? I laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. I'm not the one who's been lying about imaginary business trips while sneaking around with my manager. The fight went out of her suddenly. Maren sank onto our couch, the black dress that had looked so elegant now seeming like a costume she'd been caught wearing to the wrong party. It's not what you think, she said quietly. Then explain it to me. Explain it to all of us. We're your friends, right? We want to understand. Maren looked around the room at the faces of people she'd known for years, neighbors, co-workers, family friends, all watching her with a mixture of pity and fascination. The social media posts had turned our private crisis into public entertainment, and there was no way to put that genie back in the bottle. I can't do this, she whispered. Can't do what? Tell the truth? Or keep lying? She stood up abruptly. I need some air. Maren walked toward the back door, but I stepped into her path. Actually, I think our guests deserve an explanation. They took time out of their Saturday night to celebrate our marriage. The least you can do is tell them why there's nothing left to celebrate. Move, Elias. No. We stood facing each other in the middle of our living room, 15 years of marriage reduced to a standoff while our friends and neighbors watched like spectators at a car crash. My phone rang in Maren's hand. Nolan's name on the caller ID. Answer it, I said. Put it on speaker. Let's all hear what he has to say about tonight's weather emergency. Maren's hand trembled as she stared at the phone. The ringing seemed to echo through the silent room, each tone ratcheting up the tension another notch. Finally, she answered. Hello, Nolan. Jesus, Maren, what's happening over there? My wife just called me asking why people are posting about your marriage on Facebook. Did Elias really… Maren hung up quickly, but it was too late. The room had heard enough to confirm what everyone already suspected. Janet stepped backward, shaking her head. Oh, Maren, how could you? It's complicated, Maren said desperately. You don't understand the situation. Then help us understand, I said. Start with the truth about where you were tonight. Start with the truth about Nolan Trent. Start with the truth about anything. Maren looked around the room one more time, seeing her reputation dissolve in real time. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. I was with Nolan. We've been seeing each other for a few months. Tonight was supposed to be the end of it. I was going to tell him it was over and come home to work things out with you. The admission hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had finally been doused. But instead of relief, I felt something darker settling into my chest. The confirmation of betrayal was somehow less satisfying than I'd expected. And the conference story? The blizzard? I panicked. I knew you'd planned this whole party, and I couldn't face disappointing everyone. I thought I could handle both situations, and nobody would get hurt. Nobody would get hurt, I repeated. Interesting philosophy. Ruby had been silent through most of the confrontation, but now she spoke up, her voice thick with tears. So you've been cheating on Dad for months? While we were all living here like a normal family? Maren turned toward our daughter, her face crumpling. Ruby, sweetheart, it's not that simple. Sometimes adults make mistakes when they're unhappy. Don't, I interrupted. Don't you dare blame this on being unhappy. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. You could have suggested counseling. You could have asked for a divorce. Instead, you chose to lie and sneak around and make me look like an idiot while you played house with your boss. The room was completely silent now. Even Mrs. Patterson had stopped her nervous fidgeting. Maren straightened up, and I saw her slip back into defensive mode. You're right. I handled this badly. But you're not exactly innocent here, Elias. When was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you showed any interest in my life beyond asking what's for dinner? So this is my fault? It's both our faults. Our marriage has been over for years. We've just been too comfortable to admit it. I felt the room's attention shift slightly, some of the sympathy flowing away from me and toward the woman who was at least acknowledging shared responsibility. It was a smart move, and it made me angrier than anything else she'd said. You're absolutely right, I said. Our marriage has been over for years, but I'm not the one who decided to start dating other people while pretending everything was fine. I closed my laptop and looked around the room at our guests, who were still frozen in place like actors who'd forgotten their lines. Well, I announced, This has been illuminating. Thank you all for coming to our anniversary party. As you can see, we're definitely celebrating the end of something tonight. The party dissolved like sugar in rain. Guests fled our house with the urgency of people escaping a natural disaster, clutching their purses and making awkward excuses about early mornings and babysitters. Within 20 minutes, our living room was empty except for the abandoned catered food and the still gurgling chocolate fountain. Maren had locked herself in our bedroom. Ruby had retreated to her room, and I could hear her on the phone with friends, no doubt trying to control the damage to her social life. I sat alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the debris of 15 years of marriage, and began planning my next moves. The social media explosion was already beyond containment. My phone buzzed constantly with calls, texts, and notifications as news of our very public breakup spread through our social network. But instead of feeling embarrassed, I found myself oddly energized. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was taking action instead of just reacting to life. I opened my laptop and began a systematic audit of our shared assets: bank accounts, investment portfolios, retirement funds, insurance policies, everything that would need to be untangled in divorce proceedings. As a network analyst, I was naturally methodical, and I applied that same systematic approach to dismantling my marriage. The front door opened, and I heard familiar voices in the hallway. Janet had returned, along with two other women from Maren's work circle, Lisa Chen and Beth Morrison. They moved through the house with the purposeful energy of a crisis intervention team. "Where is she?" Janet asked, not bothering with pleasantries. "Upstairs," I said, probably trying to figure out how to spin this into my fault. "You humiliated her in front of 60 people," Lisa said. "What did you think would happen?" "I thought she might tell the truth for once. Silly me." Beth stepped forward, her face flushed with indignation. "Elias, I understand you're hurt, but what you did tonight was cruel and unnecessary. You could have handled this privately. Like Maren handled her affair privately. That's different, and you know it." I laughed, the sound echoing off our kitchen cabinets. "Really? How is it different?" "Because she was trying to protect you. She was ending it tonight." "Protect me from what? The truth? And how do you know she was ending it? Did she tell you about the affair?" The three women exchanged glances, and I saw the answer in their faces. "You all knew," I said. "You've all been covering for her." Janet lifted her chin defensively. "We were trying to help her work through a difficult situation." "A difficult situation," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling adultery now?" "Elias," Beth said, "marriages are complicated. Sometimes people make mistakes when they're feeling disconnected from their partners." "So this is still my fault?" "Nobody's saying it's your fault," Lisa interjected, "but you have to take some responsibility for the state of your relationship. When was the last time you took Maren out to dinner? When was the last time you bought her flowers or planned a romantic evening?" I stared at them, feeling like I'd stepped through the looking glass into a world where basic logic had been suspended. "Are you seriously suggesting that I drove my wife into another man's arms by not buying enough flowers? We're suggesting that maybe if you'd paid more attention to your wife's emotional needs, she wouldn't have been vulnerable to someone else's attention," Janet said. The audacity of it was breathtaking. Three women who'd spent months helping my wife lie to me were now lecturing me about marital responsibility. I felt something cold and calculating settle into my chest, replacing the hot anger that had fueled my earlier confrontation. "You're absolutely right," I said. "I should have been a better husband. I should have paid more attention. I should have been more romantic." They looked surprised by my sudden agreement. "In fact," I continued, "I should probably start paying attention to all kinds of things I've been neglecting, like Maren's expense reports at work. Did you know she's been claiming business dinners for her hotel room service charges? That's technically fraud." Janet's face went pale. "You wouldn't." Or Nolan's situation. Married man having an affair with a subordinate employee. That's a pretty serious HR violation. Could cost both of them their jobs. Elias, don't, or the fact that you three have been actively participating in covering up their affair. I wonder how your husbands would feel about that level of sisterly solidarity. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of our refrigerator and the distant sound of Maren's voice upstairs, talking rapidly on the phone. Beth stepped forward, her voice shaking with anger. Are you threatening us? I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just thinking out loud about all the things I should start paying attention to. You're right, I have been neglectful, but I'm planning to be much more attentive from now on. Lisa grabbed Janet's arm. We should go. Yes, I agreed. You should. And maybe on your way out, you could explain to your husbands how you've been spending your girls' nights lately. They fled through the front door without another word, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my evening and the growing satisfaction of watching consequences ripple outward like waves from a dropped stone. My phone rang. The caller ID showed my brother Mike's number. Jesus, Elias, he said without preamble. I just saw your Facebook posts. What the hell happened? I gave him the condensed version, watching his shock evolve into anger on my behalf. She was cheating? For months? Apparently? And her friends knew? They were helping her cover it up. Mike was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I'm going to pay attention, I said. I'm going to be the most attentive husband in the history of marriage. That sounds ominous. Does it? I think it sounds like personal growth. After I hung up with Mike, I opened my laptop and began researching divorce attorneys. But first, I had some other research to conduct. If I was going to pay attention to things I'd been neglecting, I might as well be thorough about it. I logged into the Hartwell Industries employee directory, which was publicly accessible for client contact purposes. Nolan Trent's profile showed his full name, title, and work email address. A quick search of his name on social media revealed his wife's name, Patricia, and their home address, which was listed in the property tax records. I wasn't planning anything illegal or threatening. I was simply gathering information, the same way I'd investigate any system vulnerability. Knowledge was power, and I'd been operating with incomplete data for too long. Upstairs, I could hear Maren's voice getting louder, more agitated. She was probably talking to Nolan, trying to coordinate their damage control strategy. Let them plan. I had my own strategy to develop. Ruby appeared in the kitchen doorway, her eyes red from crying. Dad, are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. How are you holding up? This is so messed up. Everyone at school is going to know about this by Monday. The whole thing is probably on TikTok already. She was right. In the age of social media, private family disasters became public entertainment within hours. But that sword cut both ways. Ruby, I want you to know that none of this is your fault. Your mother and I made our own choices, and you shouldn't feel responsible for any of it. Are you getting divorced? Probably. Where will I live? We'll figure that out. But you'll always have a home with me, no matter what happens. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Can I go to Chloe's house tomorrow? I don't want to be here when everyone's talking about this. Of course. After Ruby went back upstairs, I returned to my research. Hartwell Industries had a comprehensive code of conduct policy posted on their website, including specific provisions about romantic relationships between supervisors and subordinates. Violation of the policy could result in immediate termination for both parties. I also discovered that Nolan Trent was currently going through his own marital difficulties. A quick search of court records showed that his wife had filed for legal separation 6 months ago, citing irreconcilable differences. Interesting timing. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Blizzard Tap Room on 5th Street. Come alone. N. Nolan Trent wanted a face-to-face meeting. How convenient. I was looking forward to discussing the weather with him in person. I typed back, "See you there." Then I spent the next hour researching everything I could find about Nolan Trent's life, his marriage, his financial situation, and his professional history. By the time I went to bed, in the guest room, since Maren had claimed our master bedroom, I had a comprehensive dossier on the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. Tomorrow's conversation was going to be very interesting indeed. The Blizzard tap room was exactly the kind of place where middle-aged men went to have uncomfortable conversations. Dark wood, dim lighting, and enough ambient noise to mask awkward silences. I arrived 10 minutes early and chose a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance, ordering a coffee and settling in to wait. Nolan Trent walked in at exactly 10 o'clock, scanning the room with the nervous energy of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. He was taller than I'd expected, with the kind of artificial confidence that came from expensive clothes and regular gym memberships. The kind of man who probably described himself as distinguished, and believed it. He spotted me and approached the booth with measured steps, like he was walking to his own execution. "Elias," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Nolan, thanks for coming. Can I buy you a drink? Maybe something to warm you up after last night's terrible blizzard?" His jaw tightened. "Look, I know you're angry." "Angry?" I interrupted. "Why would I be angry? My wife spent our anniversary evening having dinner with her boss instead of attending the party we'd planned for 3 weeks. Perfectly normal behavior." Nolan glanced around the bar, making sure we weren't being overheard. "What do you want, Elias?" "I want to understand the weather patterns you and my wife have been experiencing. See, I'm a data analyst by profession, and I've been studying some interesting atmospheric disturbances." I pulled out my phone and opened the file I'd prepared the night before. Screenshots of credit card statements, location data, and hotel receipts, all organized into a neat timeline of their affair. "For instance," I continued, "there seems to be a recurring storm system that hits every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, always centered around the Grandview Hotel. Fascinating meteorological phenomenon." Nolan's face had gone pale as he scrolled through the evidence. "How did you get this information? I'm married to one of the participants, remember? Joint accounts, family phone plan, shared credit cards. Amazing how much data people generate without realizing it." He handed my phone back with shaking hands. "What do you want?" "I want you to help me understand how this happened. See, up until yesterday, I thought I had a pretty good marriage. Sure, we weren't perfect, but I believed my wife when she said she loved me. I believed her when she said she was working late or attending conferences. I even believed her when she said she was trapped in an imaginary blizzard. Elias, I never meant for this to happen." "Really? You accidentally started sleeping with your married subordinate? How does that work exactly?" Nolan ran his hands through his hair, destroying the careful styling. "It just evolved. We were working on a big project together, spending a lot of time in meetings. She was having problems at home." "What kind of problems?" "She said you two weren't connecting anymore, that you'd grown apart. She felt neglected, unappreciated." I nodded thoughtfully. "So you decided to appreciate her. How noble." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Nolan? Help me understand how a married man with 2 kids decides to have an affair with a married employee. Walk me through the decision-making process." He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Look, I know how this looks." "How it looks? Let me tell you how it looks from my perspective. It looks like my wife's boss used his position of authority to seduce a vulnerable employee. It looks like a textbook case of harassment." "That's not true. Maren pursued this as much as I did." "Really? Do you have any evidence of that?" "Because what I have is evidence of a supervisor engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate. I wonder what Hartwell Industries' HR department would make of this situation." Nolan's eyes widened as he realized the trap he'd walked into. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious. I spent last night reading your company's Code of Conduct policy. Very thorough document. Lots of specific language about power dynamics and professional boundaries. If you report this, Maren loses her job too. True, but she's already lost her marriage, so what's one more life change? I leaned back in my seat, enjoying the way Nolan's composure was crumbling. Tell me about your wife, Nolan. Patricia, right? How did she react when she found out about your extracurricular activities? How do you... He stopped himself. She doesn't know. Interesting. So you're cheating on your separated wife with my wife, who was cheating on me with you. It's like a Russian nesting doll of deception. What do you want from me, Elias? I want you to disappear. What? I want you to transfer to another division, another city, another company, I don't care. But I want you out of Maren's life permanently. I can't just quit my job. Sure you can. People do it all the time. Or maybe you'd prefer to explain to HR why you've been conducting performance reviews in hotel rooms? Nolan stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him calculating his options. Finally, he spoke in a low, desperate voice. Elias, please. I have kids, I have a career. If this gets out, it ruins everything. It should have ruined everything. That's what affairs do. They destroy lives. The only question is whose life gets destroyed. I'll end it with Maren, tonight. I'll tell her it's over, and we can't see each other anymore. Too late. She already told me she was ending it. Apparently, last night's dinner was supposed to be your farewell meal. Very romantic. Then what more do you want? I leaned forward, lowering my voice to match his. I want you to understand that you made a very serious mistake when you decided to mess with my family. I want you to spend every day wondering when the other shoe is going to drop. I want you to check your email every morning and wonder if today's the day HR gets an anonymous tip about your professional conduct. You're threatening me. I'm educating you about consequences. See, up until yesterday I was a pretty passive guy. I went to work, came home, watched TV, paid bills. I didn't pay attention to a lot of things I should have been watching. But that's changed now. I stood up, leaving a $5 bill on the table for my coffee. I'm paying attention to everything now, Nolan. Your work schedule, your travel expenses, your performance metrics. I'm going to be very interested in your career development. This is harassment. No, this is accountability. Harassment would be if I posted your photo on social media with details about your affair. Harassment would be if I sent your wife copies of your hotel receipts. Harassment would be if I showed up at your office with evidence of your policy violations. I paused, letting the implications sink in. But I'm not going to do any of those things, unless you give me a reason to. Nolan's face had gone from pale to gray. What reason? Any contact with my wife that isn't strictly professional. Any attempt to continue your relationship. Any effort to interfere with my divorce proceedings. Any sign that you think this is over just because you want it to be. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Nolan? If you're thinking about trying to intimidate me or make this into some kind of pissing contest, you should know that I have copies of everything stored in multiple locations. Insurance policy. I left him sitting alone in the booth, staring at his hands, and probably wondering how his life had gotten so complicated so quickly. The drive home gave me time to think about my next steps. The confrontation with Nolan had been satisfying, but it was just the opening move in a longer game. Maren would need to be dealt with more carefully. She was, after all, the mother of my daughter and the person I'd shared 15 years of my life with. But she was also the person who'd been lying to my face for months while conducting an affair with her boss. The person who'd invented a fictional weather emergency rather than attend our anniversary party. The person who'd turned our friends into accomplices in her deception. I pulled into our driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house we'd bought together when Ruby was 2 years old. We'd painted the shutters blue because Maren said it looked cheerful. We'd planted the maple tree in the front yard to provide shade for summer barbecues. We'd built a life here, or at least the appearance of one. Now I was going to have to tear it all down, piece by piece, and see what was left when the demolition was complete. My phone buzzed with a text from Maren. We need to talk. I typed back, yes, we do. The reckoning was just beginning. I found Maren in our kitchen, sitting at the island where we'd shared thousands of meals over the years. She'd changed out of the black dress into jeans and a sweater, and without makeup, she looked younger and more vulnerable. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the hotel receipts. "How did it go with Nolan?" she asked. "Enlightening. He seems to think this is all your fault. Something about you pursuing him." Her face flushed. "That's not true. Doesn't matter. What matters is that he's willing to throw you under the bus to save his own career." I sat down across from her, noting how she avoided eye contact. "So what did you want to talk about?" "I want to apologize. Really apologize, not just damage control. What I did was wrong, and I hurt you and Ruby in ways that can't be undone." "Go on." "I know you don't believe me, but I was planning to end it. Last night was supposed to be closure. Except you lied about where you were going and missed our anniversary party to have closure dinner with your boyfriend." I panicked. I knew if I told you the truth, you'd want to have a big emotional conversation, and I wasn't ready for that. I thought I could handle both situations and then come clean afterward. I studied her face, looking for signs of genuine remorse versus strategic positioning. After 15 years of marriage, I'd learned to read her expressions, but this conversation felt different, like we were both speaking a language we'd never learned properly. "Maren, do you understand what you've done to us? Not just the affair, but the lying, the manipulation, the way you made me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong?" "I know. I'm sorry." "Are you? Or are you sorry you got caught?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Both, I think." At least she was being honest about something. "Where do we go from here?" she asked. "We get divorced. I file the papers, we divide our assets, we figure out custody arrangements for Ruby. It doesn't have to be that way. People recover from affairs. We could try counseling." "No. Elias, please. Don't make a permanent decision based on temporary emotions." I laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "Temporary emotions? Maren, you've been cheating on me for months. You've been lying to my face every day. You turned our friends into accomplices. You missed our anniversary party to be with another man. Which part of that feels temporary to you?" "The affair is over. I told you that. Because you got caught. If I hadn't figured out your weather story, you'd still be sneaking around with Nolan. You don't know that. Don't I? When exactly were you planning to end it? Next week? Next month? After his divorce was finalized?" Her silence was answer enough. "I've already contacted a lawyer," I said. "I'm filing for divorce on Monday." "What about Ruby?" "What about her? She'll adjust. Kids are resilient. She needs stability. She needs both her parents. She needs parents who don't lie to each other and humiliate each other in public. Since we can't seem to manage that while married, maybe we'll do better divorced." Maren's composure finally cracked, and tears started flowing down her cheeks. "I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can rebuild. With what foundation? Trust? Honesty? Mutual respect? You destroyed all of that. People make mistakes." "This wasn't a mistake, Maren. Mistakes are accidental. You made a series of deliberate choices over several months. You chose to start an affair. You chose to lie about it. You chose to involve our friends in covering it up. You chose to miss our anniversary party. Every step of the way, you had opportunities to make different choices, and you didn't." I stood up, suddenly exhausted by the conversation. "I'm sleeping in the guest room until we can work out living arrangements. I'd prefer if you found somewhere else to stay, but I won't force the issue if Ruby needs you here." "Elias, wait." I turned back toward her. "I do love you. I know that probably doesn't mean anything now, but it's true. I got confused and selfish and stupid, but I never stopped loving you." Love isn't just a feeling, Maren. It's a choice you make every day. It's choosing to be honest when honesty is hard. It's choosing loyalty when temptation is easy. It's choosing your family when other options present themselves. I walked toward the stairs, then paused. You stopped choosing me months ago. I'm just finally accepting that. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal consultations, financial planning, and awkward conversations with Ruby about custody arrangements. Maren moved in with her sister temporarily, coming by the house only to pick up clothes and spend time with our daughter. The social media storm eventually faded down, replaced by newer scandals and fresher gossip. But the damage to Maren's reputation was permanent. Her work friends stopped calling. Neighbors avoided eye contact. The pharmaceutical sales community was small and gossipy, and word of her affair with Nolan spread quickly through professional networks. Nolan, as I'd predicted, threw her completely under the bus when HR launched their investigation. He claimed she'd pursued him aggressively and threatened to file harassment charges if he rejected her advances. Maren was terminated for violation of company policy. Nolan received a written reprimand and a transfer to another division. I felt no satisfaction in watching Maren's life implode. There was no joy in seeing her struggle to find new employment or watching her move back in with her parents at age 41. But there was a certain symmetry to it. Actions had consequences, and consequences were finally catching up with everyone involved. Ruby adjusted better than I'd expected. She split her time between my house and Maren's temporary living situation, maintaining relationships with both parents while making it clear she thought we were both idiots for destroying our family. You could have worked it out, she told me one evening while we were making dinner together. Other people get past affairs. Some do, I agreed. But trust is like a window. Once it's broken, you can tape it back together, but it's never the same. That's a stupid metaphor. Maybe, but it's accurate. 6 months after our anniversary party disaster, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. Maren had agreed to all my terms. I kept the house, she took her car, and half our savings. We shared custody of Ruby. Any regrets? My lawyer asked as I handed back the signed documents. About the divorce? No. About the way I handled the discovery? Sometimes. What would you do differently? I thought about it for a moment. I might have been less public about it. The social media thing was probably overkill. But effective. Yes, very effective. I drove home through the same suburban streets where I'd lived for 15 years, past the neighbors who still whispered when they saw me, past the Blizzard taproom where I'd confronted Nolan, past the Grandview Hotel where my marriage had faded in installments. Ruby was waiting for me in the kitchen, homework spread across the island. How did it go? She asked without looking up from her textbook. It's done. Officially divorced as of today. How do you feel? Free, I said, surprised by the truth of it. Sad, but free. Are you going to start dating? Eventually, maybe. Not anytime soon. Good. That would be weird. I laughed, ruffling her hair as I walked past. What do you want for dinner? Pizza. And before you ask, yes, I've already finished my math homework. As I called for pizza delivery, I realized that this was what happiness looked like now. Quiet evenings with my daughter, honest conversations, no lies or deceptions or hidden agendas. It was smaller than the life I'd planned, but it was real. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. Saw the divorce announcement in the paper. Hope you're doing okay. Patricia Trent. Nolan's wife. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "Thank you. I hope you are too." She responded immediately. Getting there? Coffee sometime? I think we have a lot to compare notes about. I smiled, typing back, I'd like that. Maybe the next chapter of my life would be more interesting than I'd expected. Ruby looked up from her homework. Who was that? Someone who understands weather patterns, I said. That's a weird answer. It's been a weird year. True, but at least it's over now. I looked around our kitchen, my kitchen now, with its blue shutters and family photos and all the accumulated evidence of a life that had been built and broken and was slowly being rebuilt into something new. Yes, I agreed. It's finally over.